this time, I would ask that everybody stand, face the flag, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Baumgarten, can we have the roll call, please?
All right. Allen?
Here.
Butts?
Here.
Emmons? Gasson?
Here.
McAlpine? Euler?
Here.
Evans?
Here. Okay, at this time, we only have 6 members. This board is a group of 7. Have we heard from Mr. Emmons? Do we know if he's going to be here?
We have not, sir.
Okay.
We have not heard from him.
Well, I think what I will do is we'll proceed with our regular business, but once we come up to the application, if he's still not here, I know alternate Krug is in the audience. He was here last month, and I'll ask him to sit in that spot. So if there's no other objections from any of the board members, we have a proposed agenda by staff. Are there any proposed amendments, changes to the agenda, either by any member of the board or staff? No?
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have meeting minutes from January 14th, 2019. We received those. Does any member of the board have any, or staff for that matter, have any changes or corrections to those meeting minutes? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No objections. Okay.
And I will abstain since I was not on the board at that particular time.
So noted. Thank you. Okay, our item for the agenda, and this is an item that was postponed from our January 14th, is application PBA 1118. And at this point, board member Emmons is not here. Alternate Krug is in the audience. I'd invite Mr. Krug to come up and make us a full 7-member board. And for anyone who wasn't here last month, Mr. Krug was here at that meeting and did hear all the testimony.
How you doing?
Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Baumgarten for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will read the agenda item as stated. Application number PBA-11-18, postponed from January 14th. Berkley Green Lantern Properties, LLC, located at address 4033 12 Mile Road, south side of 12 Mile Road, between Elwood Avenue and Thomas Avenue. Parcel ID number 25-18-102-037, is requesting a dimensional variance for on-street parking. The applicant, as you recall from the previous meeting, has purchased the property formerly occupied by Sela's Restaurant. They are looking to extend their franchise, the Green Lantern Restaurants, into that property, and they are, because of the existing use, there would be a variance that applies. However, in this particular situation, the applicants have indicated that they would like to extend the site plan, alter the site plan to extend an outdoor seating area, thus requiring them to meet the full requirements as indicated by the ordinance. To that, they are deficient by 16 spaces, although they've indicated that they'll be installing a bike rack, which brings the requirement down to 14 spaces.
Okay, does any members of the board have any questions for staff? Okay, based on the fact that we've had some additional information provided to the board since our last meeting, I'd like to ask the applicant to come up and provide any additional details to us, if you'd like. Certainly if there's nothing you'd like to add, if it all stands on its face, required.
I just wanted to make sure you guys have all the facts. Oh, by the way, Bill Smith, I'm an architect of the Rossetti. John Spreitzer, if you remember from last. Just to stipulate, what we're looking at is that we've actually reduced the amount of dining area compared to Silas, or Silas, excuse me. So we're actually making the issue slightly better as far as the load. I know that's not exactly what you look at for the parking count, but that is something that we are taking into account, and we are trying to follow the lead that the Berkley has taken with trying to increase the viability of the pedestrian experience on 12 Mile Road, so we feel like the outdoor seating area only benefits the neighborhood.
Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant? No. Ms. Ward?
At the last meeting, although I was not seated on the dais, I was in the audience. One of the things that was requested was the possibility of getting agreements with the abutting property owners with regard to parking. And I did not see that in the package that we received, and I just wondered if there were any written or other, excuse me, possibilities that agreements had been entered into with the property next door and with what used to be the toy soldier shop.
We don't have anything in writing. We do have some handshake agreements with the restaurant next to us to use their back lot for staff parking. We've talked to some of the local neighbors. Nobody's going to put it in writing. I mean, it legally binds them to something that has no benefit for them. So I can get these guys to give us a handshake agreement. We kind of walk through it, and that's the best I can do when it comes to that stuff.
And also the...
Sir, I'm sorry, could you step up to the... could you give us your name and your involvement with the project?
Pete Rodriguez, owner and operator of Green Lantern Properties. Tim had mentioned also as well he let us know that the Toy Soldier parking lot does not offer enough parking for us to get an agreement with them. So that was kind of a moot point after we followed up with him later. So we weren't able to approach that because they don't have enough parking.
Thank you. I have one question. Do you offer carryout? And if so, can you detail?
Do we offer carryout?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I know the parking or the occupant load study here did not indicate that you were having carryout. How does that impact the occupant load?
Typically in our restaurant settings, our carryout's like 10% of our sales. We have carryout delivery stores that actually deliver to Berkley now. So they usually take most of the load off that. Most of the stuff is delivery for that aspect. People are in and out pretty quick. So, and obviously with a tight parking space like that, it'd probably be even less would be carrying out.
And by carryout, we're referring to someone who doesn't dine there.
Right.
But they call and come and pick up a product.
Right.
Okay. Would it be possible to provide us, if the board wanted to do this, additional calculations and information that would show perhaps how that would impact occupant load? If the board decided that's the direction we wanted to go tonight.
Sure, like you want to know what the percentage of sales is? I mean, I can't do a study for you. I wouldn't know how that would work, but you just want to know, I can give you the percent of sales that our typical restaurants would do, and you can... Well, how many people in a night would average?
What I can tell you is our report indicates that, based on what the city says and the fire marshal, that the total dining bar carryout occupant load for Silas is X number. So whatever formula they use, I'd presume they would apply a similar formula to anyone else who's moving in there that might provide a carryout operation. So with that being said,
well, typically with carryouts, people are in and out in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They're not standing. They're not so there's not going to be 10 or 12 carryout people sitting in the building.
We would hope not, right?
Well, if we do our job, they're not sitting in the building for that long. But typically they order ahead. They come and get their food and they leave. I mean, they're usually in there for just a few minutes. Even our busiest restaurant, we might have 2 or 3 people, standing waiting for food. It's not like there's a dozen people waiting for it. So.
Okay. All right. Any further questions?
I would like to remind the board that Silas also had carryout when they were in business.
Right.
They had a very big carryout business.
True.
Mr. Desant.
You said that some of your business is delivery?
Not at this store.
Not this store.
We deliver
okay.
at 3rd Jam and Rochester Road, and our delivery area kind of includes part of Berkley.
Okay.
So we deliver to most of Berkley now. I mean, Not really the west side, but most of the east side of Berkeley, we currently deliver there.
So there wouldn't be additional need for parking for delivery drivers?
No. Yeah, we won't be delivering out of the store.
Okay.
No delivery out of this store? Is that what I heard you say?
We will not be delivering out of the store, no.
Gotcha, okay. All right, I don't think there's any more questions. If you'd have a seat, please. Thank you very much. And while we did hold the requisite public hearing at last month's meeting, we did receive some new information. So at this point, I'm going to open up the public hearing for anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter. Is there anyone here who would like to speak regarding this matter? Please step up to the microphone. Thank you. And if you could just let us know your name and city of address.
Hello, Sue Citraro, Berkeley. I live in an area where at times it is difficult to park and back out of my driveway, so I do empathize with the residents who live by this restaurant. I really do want Green Lantern to open. However, the ZBA needs to base any approvals on all 5 standards. When you ignore the standards, you can look to Vincetta Garage. The residents are miserable, and Vincetta Garage is suing the city. It's a lose-lose situation for all involved. Mr. McLean's memo that I read in the packet online basically said, well, we're going to have parking problems anyway, so let's just do this. Why would the city intentionally exacerbate a problem for the residents? Also, I do not like the emotional blackmail from Green Lantern that says if they don't get this variance for outdoor seating, they will not meet their return on investment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this building has been the same for the last year, 3, 5, 10. Did Green Lantern not do their due diligence? I suspect not. My question is, why should the residents have to suffer because of it? Green Lantern already has a variance of sort. They're allowed to keep the current lower parking standards as long as they do not change the footprint of the building. Our grandfather laws already provide relief from the change in the parking ordinance. Based on these items, I feel this ordinance should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Yes.
Good evening. Judy Stiltner, 3310 Thomas. I live just 3 houses behind the Dow Hospital, which will always be the Dow Hospital. I have been in child care since 1964. I moved into my house in 1960. I did not move off of a busy street. I should have known better, as it was cited in one of the meetings. It was, Stella's at that time was a big field with a big tree where all the kids met, picnicked, had a good time. Stella's moved in, and they were great neighbors. They really were. I have no complaints. We've gotten used to the parking. We know sometimes we have problems. We know sometimes people used to park in front of our driveway, but you know what? Now we have a non-emergency line, and we can use that. So to me, gentlemen, leave the parking the way it is. We're used to it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for them, almost. I don't feel they did their homework. I hope they'll be as good a neighbors as they were. And just as an add-on, I went over and talked to Jimmy and Lisa at the, what's it called? At the Country Oven, and they said absolutely they would not use their back parking lot or any other parking lot. I went and did that, and I don't know whether he bothered or not, but he should have. My parents have to have room, at least 1 parking spot. That's what I got in front of my house. I've got the stop sign, or the no parking sign in front of my house. And that's worked fine. We've learned to work around it. And everybody else in the block, all the way from me to Beverly, we've all learned to work around it. We don't need a change. We're okay. Please, just leave us be. We've been here a long, long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I ask the resident a question?
Sure.
What would you think of permitted parking for the residents?
How would that work exactly?
That a resident would get a permit that they would put either on their mirror or in their window, and it would allow you as the resident to park, but others would not be able to park on the street. And my sister is in a situation where they have permitted parking for their street, and they get 2 or 3 extra permits that they can give to a relative or a friend who stops by and wants to visit for the afternoon or the evening, and they just hand them the parking pass, they put it in their window, come in, visit, do whatever, and then when they leave, they bring the parking pass back to the resident. So it allows you to have company, to have people visit you, to park on your street, but yet it would be not available for the public to park on the street.
So there would be a sign up there that says no parking without a permit?
It would say permit parking only.
Now, that would work. I think that would work for all of us, but I don't expect that. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm happy the way it is. My parents get in and out okay. The only time I'm sure I'm going to have any problems is maybe from 5 to 6. Other than that, it shouldn't be a problem. I'd like to know how the parking is set up, if I may. Is it the U shape where they're going to go in and come out?
And we can address that in just a moment. Yes, I think.
Okay,
Mr.
because I
Baumgart-
know that was a problem when Silla's came in. In fact, I stood right here and
Yeah,
said that was Pandora's box.
we may, I haven't asked staff, but we may have a slide that we can show you. Yeah,
Also, I'd like to ask, at what age, are minors allowed in this building all times up to 2 o'clock in the morning?
we can see if the applicant is available to answer that, sure.
Okay, also, the patio that he wants, I'm sure it's going to have a different crowd after midnight than it is before midnight. I've taken care of that. I'm moving my front bedroom into the back of the house, irregardless, just because. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, please step up.
Hi, Melissa Kendall, Berkley. I just want to say that the general consensus I've gotten from speaking with my neighbors about this is that we all sort of feel we would benefit more from retaining the current parking situation than we would benefit from having access to an outdoor patio at the restaurant, which I think we all agree we're looking forward to it opening. But I think in addition to concerns about car safety and being double parked, and I think it's a little unclear exactly where they're proposing to add the additional spaces, so there's been a lot of confusion about that. But I think mainly, yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought, but it just doesn't, there's been additional concerns about, you know, the appeal of these houses now as it currently stands. It is sort of appealing to like any of us who are potentially going to be selling the house in the our homes in the future, to have this sort of space that we have now where you aren't allowed to park in front of that first sort of half a block, compared to if there's sort of a gridlocked parking situation, then, you know, it might be harder for me to sell my house. It might affect the property values and stuff like that. So just in terms of starting out on the right foot with the community and the relationship that this restaurant is going to have to the community, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are annoyed with any changes to the parking situation. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience who would like to speak regarding this? Anyone? Yes, sir.
Timothy Barnes. Gatekeeper Games will be in the Doll Hospital spot. I was here last month. I'd just like to offer my continued support to Green Lantern getting the variance it needs. The city itself has suggested to ourselves having an outdoor patio. We are fortunate in that we're in the 500 feet with the requirements for a municipal lot. Parking situation may be dealt with by the city on a larger scale at some point in the future as we develop the Downtown District Association, and I certainly hope so. But in the meantime, as it was expressed to me, by the Downtown Development Association and some of the chamber, you're looking to have more of a visible view from 12 Mile, including such things as a patio. And they asked me to put in a patio at the place I'll be putting in. And as we consider to do that going forward, you know, it interests me greatly what's going on here now. But whatever the city may or may not do in the future cannot be spoken for. I'm just offering my support for the variance. Increasing the visibility on 12 Mile for such things as a nice business district will increase property values, resale values, et cetera. You all know that basic math. So I'm just speaking for letting them have the variance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, just to follow up on what Tim said, I'm Vivian Carmody, the DDA director. I think it's important to remember that the stronger our business district, the stronger is the community as a whole. And the more we can create convivial spaces and spaces that people want to come to, the stronger our business district is going to be. Our new design guidelines actually encourage outdoor dining because it activates the street front. We also know that our parking requirements are incredibly out of date and that at some point in the future we are going to have to bring them into more of a national standard. I realize that that's not the standard that you guys are holding to right now, but it is, it's a fact. So I think that while often we haven't realized maybe in the past how important this business district is to the health of the community, I have to speak to that because what these guys are doing by putting a patio out and activating the street front is the type of thing that we need to see to keep a healthy downtown.
Thank you very much.
May I make a comment?
Okay. One moment. Is there anyone else who would like? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? No, I'm sorry. Everyone gets one chance to speak. Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Okay. Is it something you'd want to comment on now? I was going to ask if we could bring in the rest of the comments from the record, but if it's pertinent to this comment.
Well, it was pertinent to the DDA director's comment.
Yes.
Okay. My only comment for the DDA director is certainly we want a vibrant Berkeley, but we need to protect the residents. And that is why this board was established, to grant variances where they feel there is a hardship on the business. But we don't want to make a hardship on the residents as well.
I totally agree.
Excuse me. This is not, we're all.
I thought she was asking
Yeah.
me a question.
And I think what I think what we'll do is I'm going to forward any more. We do have some additional public comment that we received by email. So if there's no one else who would like to speak who's at the meeting regarding this matter, I'm going to enter in the record we've received an email from a Berkeley resident who is in favor of the board granting the variance, and that documentation will be placed in the file. Mr. Baumgarten, has the city received any additional comments regarding this matter?
You have in front of you all the items I've received on this item.
Thank you.
There was a notice from one of the board members, but that what you have in front of you is the only citizen communication we received.
Thank you. Okay. So with that being said, I will close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the board for additional discussion. Mr. Allen.
Yes. I wanted to...
Oh, as a matter of fact, I am sorry. I promised two things to our members of the public.
No problem.
My apologies. So, Mr. Baumgarten, if we could start with you. Do we have an overhead that we could show that we had a couple comments regarding somebody wanted to get understanding of the layout of the parking?
I was seeking one out. I didn't want to be overly distracting to the speakers.
Sure. And I recall from the last meeting and seeing that they're not adding parking, but simply reconfiguring
Correct.
what is already on the site, the restriping.
That is correct, sir. I'm cycling through quickly here to find that very item.
And just so everybody's aware, as much as we try to provide answers at the meeting, we'll do our best here if we're all just patient and see if Mr. Baumgart can locate. And if we can't,
I have a,
I know it was in the large plans provided.
yeah, and I know I've got a large hard copy here, and I see one of our audience members does as well. I'd be happy to provide this.
Yeah, and there are ones
There
up
are additional
here
ones?
for the public as well.
Okay, so, all right, so Mr. Baumgarten has provided additional for the public there, so anyone who had questions about perhaps the layout or how it's going to work, that's indicated in their plans, and I see some of our residents who had those questions actually have those. So I'll let the residents peruse those. And if the applicant, would you have a comfort level in perhaps stepping up to and asking, we had a question regarding minors and what time they would be. You heard the question.
Sure. So in the direct bar area, no, they're not. But in the restaurant, we are a family restaurant. Like I said before, both of our dining locations, past about 10, 11 o'clock, there's really nobody in there, maybe 10 people. It's not, we don't allow swearing or rowdiness, or we're not really a drinking bar. I mean, the alcohol is a bonus to our food. We're 80% food, 70% food, 20, 30% liquor, so liquor, beer.
All right, so no minors in the bar area and minors allowed in the dining area. That's it, right?
We've got plenty of people that come in that are families at 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night that are coming from an event or something like that have children.
Gotcha, so no hourly restrictions on minors in that area, just in the bar. Okay, thank you very much.
okay.
That should be read into the record.
Mr. Chair, I was able to locate a larger schematic of the intended site plan.
Okay,
I will note, though, this has not gone before Planning Commission for site plan approval, though.
okay, so, okay. All right. Already closed it here.
It should have been read.
I've had a request from one of the members to temporarily reopen the public hearing to read into the record one of the written comments that we've received. Do you all have it on the dais? Does anyone have any objections to that or any thoughts on that?
No, that's good.
Okay, seeing none, I will read it into the record. And this is from Brandon Alger. It says, Tim and Paul, I am writing regarding the February ZBA meeting, specifically the proposal for a parking variance for Green Lantern. I will not be able to attend the meeting, so I wanted to drop an email stating that I strongly support the granting of this variance. There's a significant body of research showing that parking minimums are not only harmful to development and redevelopment, but they don't work as intended in the first place, generally forcing all development into a misguided one-size-fits-all situation where most proposals don't apply. I believe that is the case here. We have a very specific and arguably outdated parking minimum that, if it were strictly enforced, would prevent a beneficial addition to redevelopment in Berkeley. What is gained from this? Well, nothing really. Either we end up with additional unused parking spaces, or we get a development that didn't achieve its full potential because of strict adherence to unnecessary regulation. Don't get me wrong, I understand regulation is sometimes necessary. I work in government regulation myself, but do not believe a parking minimum is beneficial in this situation, and I do not believe that the property has demonstrated extenuating circumstances which would I do believe that the property has demonstrated extenuating circumstances which would warrant the granting of a variance. In general, Berkeley is a highly walkable community. In addition to this, we are seeing greater efforts put into multimodal transportation with the addition of MOGO and the impending road diet for Coolidge Highway. Berkeley is a dense, active community. What Berkeley is not is Canton Township. The last thing the community needs is more unused parking spaces to meet an unnecessary code. I would hope the ZBA can support this and support the unique aspects that make Berkeley what it is today by granting this variance, to support redevelopment and to support facilitating downtown Berkeley becoming a further dining and shopping destination. As an aside, one of my favorite planning blogs is Strong Towns, and they have some great information on parking minimums, how they hurt communities, and where they are being ended. I imagine you are both aware of this direction that many communities are going, but if not, I'd recommend giving it a read and looking into it, and he provides the web link. So with that, I'll reclose the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Mr. Allen.
Question, a couple of statements. First question is, this absolutely will be going to the Planning Commission either way, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I know that was a discussion that I had with a planning commissioner or two, and I was pretty sure that was the answer, but I wanted to make sure. I appreciate the fact that the occupant load figures were provided. There were a couple of people who asked for that the last time, and it's much appreciated. But the thing I need to remind this board of is we have 5 standards that have to be met. Anything else is extra and shouldn't be held to that. And in looking over Tim's memo that he put together, he himself, on item number 2, states that it's not been met. We need to meet all 5.
You said item number 3 was not met.
Item number 3? I'm sorry. Yes.
It was 3.
Sorry about that.
You said it was close. I had a question as well.
Yeah, Mr. Ular.
I don't know if I'm misreading the new information the way it's presented, but it sounds like in this paragraph that it's saying that Sela's in May of '79 was supposed to have 46, and sometime between now and then it went down to 42. Is that correct? And that it's still going to be 42?
If there are no changes made to the exterior of the site plan, then the existing variance would stand, and 42 would be the number required of them.
But my question is, how many are there right now? I'm reading this as saying there's 42.
Right, currently provided.
There is 42.
Yeah, there's 42.
Yes.
Yes.
I think I read it the same way.
Which is what the Green Lantern is saying they're going to have now, correct? So they're proposing having the same amount of parking for an occupancy load that's much less.
They were able to restripe and recapture the 2 spaces that were currently occupied by the outdoor dining space. So yes, that's a continuation of the existing number of spaces.
So then I will
still falls short of the standard.
So I will then transition my question into a comment if I can, which is, I mean, that is the biggest thing to me. It's the same amount of spaces for an occupancy load that's much less, or at least 25–30% less, if I'm reading this right. And as far as the standard goes, you know, when we get there, I think a motion would be appropriate, but you've got 5 steps, and the one that Tim said wasn't met. Strict compliance with the ordinance would render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome. To me, it's unnecessarily burdensome if you have a business owner that's coming in trying to actually decrease the nonconformity, which is what this would do. It would decrease the existing nonconformity, and we're saying no. I mean, it's like, that'd be like running down the rabbit hole.
Well, for the audience, I'd like to put the numbers, actual numbers out there. Sela's actually had an occupancy load of 206. Without the patio open, which would be 9 months out of the year, basically, around here, the load's going to decrease to 159 instead of 206. And with the patio open, it's going to decrease by 75 seats, or 47 with the patio open. So it's 47 extra chairs or empty seats. with the same number of parking spots. And nobody complained about the parking with Sila's.
I'm sure so. Well, I don't know.
Oh.
Any additional discussion from any members of the board? Any thoughts as how this might tie into our 5 standards? We want to make sure that we do an excellent job of enumerating whatever decision we come to and how it's tied into the standards. Mr. Allen?
Yeah, item number 3 that we talked about, that Tim said that he did not believe the standard had been met. I found a couple myself in reading them that I didn't think were met either. I don't feel comfortable enough about the parking coming into the neighborhood being taken care of, and I think the variance may well adversely impact the surrounding properties. I really do. I can't prove it, but it also can't be proven that it won't. And that's very important. The other one was, that I found, the need for the variance is not the result of actions of the property owner or previous property owner. Well, that's silly. The property owner wants to add on to a building that already doesn't have enough parking spaces, but he's grandfathered. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I would just like to make a point. There was discussion about floor space and total floor area and, for the Green Lantern and for Silla's. By my calculations, it's less than 10% difference. And to me, that is not a huge, it's not 25%. It's not a huge amount.
You're saying the addition is less than 10% of what's out there now?
Well, the usage, the total floor area for Silla's was 5,420 square feet. For the Green Lantern, it's going to be 4,940. And one of my board colleagues made the comment that it was about 25% less, and it's really not 25% less. It's merely a little less than 10%.
People it is, 206 to 159. That was the point I was making.
Oh,
but
okay.
But it's less in space as well. So the old restaurant could have 206 people in it. The current one would have 159.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
And that's including the patio.
I had one other, a couple months back before this board, we had the case where we had, the place there on 12 Mile, it's an auto shop, and you can see it's almost a hair salon now. And they asked for a variance, and we denied it. And there was discussion about it last time. But if the board wanted to kind of think of an analogy, it would have been a situation where if there had been a hair salon there before with 6 seats and a new one wanted to come in with 4 seats, four chairs to have their hair cut as opposed to 6, and we said no because the building was going to be a tiny bit bigger, it's just, that's the same thing.
Okay. Good. Any additional discussion from any of the board members?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Again, my concern is for the impact that the neighborhood will feel by granting the variance, that overflow parking will spill out into the neighborhood. And I know I live just down the block from Crispelli's, and I would be extremely upset if Crispelli's did not have enough parking space and I had people parking on my street in order to go to Crispelli's. So I'm concerned about the effect, the housing value, et cetera, for the neighbors who live on Thomas.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
The one thing that I was going to mention I completely forgot about is, while in theory, residents parking only stickers are really quite a good idea. In practice, when you have a public safety department that may be stretched to its limits, who's going to enforce that? So maybe in practicality, it doesn't work so well.
Sure.
If I may.
Mr. Gisund?
I keep returning to the possibility of valet parking, that might alleviate some of what I'm hearing my fellow board members discussing, that if we could have valet parking for when the patio is open in hours between 6 and maybe 10, otherwise during holidays, that sort of thing, to alleviate some of that overflow parking, and then the agreement with the valet parking company that I assume you would hire an outside company to do would be no parking in the residential street. You have to park in the municipal lot or elsewhere where we have a parking agreement.
I have a question for you, though. What if people decide they don't want a valet?
Well, we can't do anything about those, but we can do.
I don't valet.
No.
Thank you.
You know, the only other thing I see with valet is there's nowhere really close to there where the valet could take the cars. Our municipal lots that are to the east are full all the time with the restaurants and so forth going on there.
I guess in all respect to your suggestion, when the city does establish, for example, I know we have a regulation that says if you're within a certain distance of public parking, you don't need, well, was that regulation designed in a manner to accommodate potential parking within that number of feet? But if we're further outside that, are we essentially taking or forcing parking that maybe shouldn't be there by way of what the board might have done, and now negatively impacting the ability for other businesses that are within?
Correct.
That's just my thought relative to your attempted, trying to solve this.
All right.
I had another. Is it possible to ask the owner a question again?
It is possible to ask the owner a question. Mr. Owner, would you please step up?
And sir, I probably kind of telegraphed where I'm at already, but my question is, so assuming that you don't get this variance and the patio can't be built, what is the floor plan going to be inside? Do you know yet?
Well, we, when you design restaurants, it's not just like get a building, throw a kitchen, and slap as many tables and chairs as you can. There's a design element to it so that, the customer experience is seamless, right? So we want a little bit of outdoor, a little bit of indoor. So in a nutshell, regardless of the patio, we're going to, so there's 16 seats out there, 20, right? We're just going to jam 30 more seats inside. It's really not a seating issue. This is either the city wants outdoor patio and the place to look nice out, nicer out there, or you don't. Has nothing to do with parking. Either way, we're going to have that many seats in there.
So that
we don't get here. We have a certain amount of seats that we have to do on a big investment like this. Again, we're a business. We need to make sure that our baseline is covered. We're going to bank a lot of money, and at the end of the day, if we need this many seats, that's how many we need. So if we got to shrink the kitchen up a little back, push the carryout back, and slap 30, 40 seats inside, then that's what we'll do. We just prefer to have it not like that. A little bit of outdoor seating, a little indoor seating, just the outside looks better. It's better for the community. It's just nicer looking. It's not so hardscaped all over the place. I think better for Berkeley. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. And
if I could then make a comment to the board. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So, in response to
Maria.
I'm sorry, we haven't met before. Your comment. I just hope that the board and the residents, I don't want to seem unsympathetic to the residents, because I know if you live in that block, it's I live right in front of Anderson Middle School, and I get parked and I have to call the cops sometimes when Brother Roy's football games happen. But you have to, I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. I mean, what is it going to be if the variance isn't granted? And what it's going to be is a restaurant with the same amount of seats or more just inside. So what is the parking problem difference going to be? We're all just making this assumption that because it's an outdoor patio, the parking problem is going to be way, way worse. And is that true? I mean, there's going to be just as many seats or more inside if the patio is not there. And there's going to be the same amount of spots either way.
You know, piggybacking on that, my opinion is that we've already been told if they want to come in and operate just as the predecessor has, they can. They've got the non-conforming right to be underparked, and they can have, by one measure, like the same occupancy load as Sila's had. They're proposing a lower occupancy load. So I struggle with this. I can think of a lot of good reasons to do this. I do believe that it's, in my opinion, reasonably likely that what they're proposing could potentially be better for the neighborhood because there's going to be less of an occupant load. One thought I have is that the additional floor area that's created is clearly seasonal. If it's raining, it's not, I don't recall.
It's not going to be used.
Well, it's going to be covered, but in Michigan, you have maybe 6 months, you know?
Yep.
And then, this is speculation on my part, but if I have the choice and I see an empty restaurant or an empty seat out there on a nice day, I'm probably going to sit outside. So, on the other hand, I'm not convinced that this property in and of itself necessarily has a practical difficulty. It's my opinion that actually because of the grandfathering ability, they've got actually an additional right over and above what, if this property were a greenfield, as one of the residents talked about when she moved in, nothing was there. Whatever standard was in effect at the time, if they were to come in today new, they would have to meet today's parking standard. Boy, oh boy, so this is, I think there's good arguments either way.
One other thought that I have, well, just to throw out there, if we're going to take, if those patio seats are going to be brought inside, then you've created those number of seats year-round. It's no longer a seasonal area.
It's true. I guess we've heard the applicant indicate that there is a solution without a variance, but I'll tell you, in my mind, it's a very nice balance that if I step back and look at other factors, this will probably work.
I just think it's so significant, the occupancy from 206 down to 131. And Silas has gotten by fine all this time. I mean, that's a lot of cars right there that won't be going.
And they've also talked about their carryout is going to be minimal.
Right.
It's 206 to 159, not 134.
159 just when the patio is open.
Yeah.
131 the rest of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Which here is 7 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year.
Too much, unfortunately.
Yes.
6 months.
I think we've heard the comments of the board. We've heard comments from the public. The applicant has demonstrated that and provided us additional information as we've asked. I guess if there's nothing more to vet from the board's perspective, I think it would be appropriate to request a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance, and I don't know if I have to read it all, but I will more or less mirror Mr. McLean's review of the factors with exception of number 3, in which I would put in that the unnecessary or the undue burden, unnecessarily burdensome, is we're taking a business that is trying to, in effect, in my mind, decrease the non-conforming use and effectively punishing them for that when we have the Downtown Development Authority asking them to do this. So that's the best I can articulate it right now.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have?
I'll support it.
Motion and support. Do we have any additional discussion, any comments? Okay, with that being said, Mr. Baumgarten, can we have a roll call vote?
Okay. Gasson?
No.
Krug?
No.
Ward?
No.
Euler?
Yes.
Allen?
No.
Butts?
Yes.
And Evans?
Yes.
Okay. Motion failed 4-3.
All right, sir, I'm sorry. Thank you for your time. Is there any other business from any member of the board or staff? Mr. Allen.
Just had one quick addition. One of the things that happens when you do special things like parking or, snow removal process, if someone's not there making it happen, then it sort of slips through the cracks. That's the thing that scares me about that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other business? Liaison report. Council member.
Thank you, Chairman. We got a little litany of things that the City Council dealt with at the last meeting. Voted to purchase a fire engine for the city and make improvements to the fire hall to house it. Received a presentation from the DBA Director and Planning Commission Chair about the Design Overlay District that's been in front of the Planning Commission. There was an approval of a 3-year contract with J.H. Hart Urban Forestry for our forestry city services. We approved a contract with SMART to provide public transportation for seniors. And then also approved an agreement, memo agreement with OLSA to provide water resident assistance program to qualifying residents. So it was a packed agenda, but a lot of good things.
Sounds like you guys are making things happen. Cool. Guys and gals.
That's all I have for you tonight.
Well, thanks for the update. As always, thank you so much for attending. We certainly appreciate the communication and the interest, and I know you can convey back to council what's happening here.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, yes, question for the councilman. Are we going to get vehicles for senior citizens?
So my understanding, and City Manager, please correct me if I'm wrong, but with SMART, it's kind of on an as-needed or as-requested basis.
The city actually does have a large, or a small bus and a large van that we keep here as part of our fleet that we do provide daily senior transportation to events and as needed.
Thank you.
When it's requested.
Right. Yeah, residents that are, or senior residents that are interested can reach out to the city's recreation department, specifically Dan McMinn, who is over our senior services.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at this point now, I'll open the floor for any public comments for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment, and at this point, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.